Welcome to episode 192. Today on Book Chat, I am interviewing audiobook narrator Jennifer Ledford. Come along as she shares with us some of her experiences while recording Out of the Solient Planet by Robert Cross. Today's episode is brought to you by Audiobooks.com. New customers get one free audiobook when using our promo code AudioShelf. You just need to enter the code AudioShelf on the sign-up page, then click Apply, then fill out the rest of your account info. Support this podcast by using our code AudioShelf and get your first audiobook free. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Here on Book Chat, we get bookish with roundtable book discussions, book recommendation lists, interviews, and more. If you'd like to check out book reviews and other bookish posts, please visit the blog at shelfaddiction.com. Let me tell you about today's guest. Jennifer D. Ledford was a born performer, acting and singing since she was a young girl. She has been honing her character skills over her entire life, from acting out Mighty Python sketches with her older brother to several years of speech and debate tournaments and theater school to chasing her four sons around the house using made-up personas. She has developed a great flexibility in her voice. Jennifer brings a vast array of tones and timbres and a keen sense of humor to her performances as she strives to bring each writer's creation to life. All of Jennifer's social media links are below in the show notes, so if you'd like to connect, you know where to find her. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it. Show your support by rating the podcast and leaving a 5-star review of Shelf Addiction on your favorite podcast directory. It seems super simple, and it is, but it also really helps me out. Don't forget to subscribe while you're there because a new episode comes out every Sunday and Wednesday. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Shelf Addiction. If you'd like to email in feedback or questions, please do, or call in and leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. I look forward to hearing from you. All of my contact information is below in the show notes. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's nice to talk to you. How are you doing?
I am very excited to be doing this. I'm a little nervous about it. It's my first podcast ever. It's a little different than an audiobook since I don't have someone else's words to sustain me.
True. I'm very excited to be the first one. I love that when that happens. It's my favorite thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got some questions for you and you're going to have some answers for me and it's super easy. So you ready to jump into it?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's start off like kind of high level. Tell me, how did you get into narrating audiobooks?
It is a strange and backward story. I've always been in acting, live performances since I was 5 years old. I'd stumbled into a few commercials a few years back, but hadn't really considered audiobooks. And I made friends with an author on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And we're just horsing around, getting to know each other. I listened to him on some podcasts. I'm like, well, I know what your voice sounds like. You want to hear what my voice sounds like? So I sent him one of my commercials. He's like, want to do an audiobook? And the rest is history. It was just, I think within, 2 weeks, I had run around and spent about $3,000 on gear and jumped in and had to learn the editing software while I was doing it. And that was about this time last year. That was the first one I did for him, iRobot. And
wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of accidental, but I'm thrilled. I wish someone had pointed this out to me 20 years ago because I would love to have started. I always wanted to be in voice acting, but I've been, busy raising my kids and I studied science in college, so it wasn't something that I even thought about. And but I love it.
So how steep was that learning curve for you?
The acting part of it, that wasn't difficult because of the acting background. And I did a lot of competitive prose and poetry reading in high school. But the tech side of it about gave me a breakdown. I went with Pro Tools, which apparently it's like I'm using the space shuttle to, I don't know, send a postcard. And my sons are musicians, so one of their teachers is also a producer, and he encouraged me to get it because hopefully they'll start using it for music. But it was very steep, especially learning the editing and getting it processed just right for Audible.
Yeah, that's great because I understand. I mean, as a podcaster, an indie podcaster, I don't have a producer to help me out with the editing. I do it myself. So I understand that editing life. It's not a joke.
Yeah, the talking part is the easy part.
Indeed. The talking part is the fun part. And then comes the editing, which is like another beast in itself. So
Absolutely.
what do you do when you're not narrating these awesome books?
Well, I have 4 sons. They are, how old are they now? 14 to 20. And we're homeschoolers, so they are always here. Except, the oldest one is earning some money, thank God, so he's not always home. We also have 3 animals, so there's a lot of very prosaic house cleaning, domestic engineering. I also do leather and resin jewelry, and I have an Etsy shop. Love to read, and Netflix. British mysteries on Netflix is my guilty passion. So that's pretty much it.
I used to make jewelry. I
Goody.
tell you, I used to make a ton of jewelry and I used to have an Etsy shop. It's still there, but I don't sell on it anymore.
Well, Etsy isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, it's not. So I'm like, it's more, well, we can get into that another time, but Etsy is transformed. And then I love Netflix here on Shelf Addiction Podcast. We're always talking about TV when we're not talking about books and audiobooks. It's a problem.
Oh.
Love it. Especially British stuff. My husband says I must have been British in a previous life. So,
Well, it was funny. I thought I was German, and I did the DNA thing and found out that I'm 70% made in the UK. And I'm like, well, that explains a lot.
nice. That's awesome.
So it must be
Maybe I
pulling
should
at
do
me.
the DNA thing too. So, since we're here talking about audiobooks,
Yes.
and I know that you are an audiobook narrator, or do you wish to be called a voice actor instead?
I'm actually fine. To me, I mean, at the moment, since audiobook narration is 100% of what I'm doing, the main reason I include voice actor, like in my description on Twitter and things like that, is because to me, there's 2 main styles of narration. And if there are actual official names for them, I don't know them because I'm still pretty new to this. But to me, you've got your classic, like your ordinary parent reading a book to their child with a nice amount of expression. A pleasant voice to listen to, and you're just kind of drifting, listening. And that's a great narration. I think a lot of people go for that. And then there's me. And I'm more like with that first book, I did 37 different characters.
Wow.
Including a parrot, because my author is insane.
Wow. That's a lot.
So, yeah, and I gave every one of them a different voice. I gave them accents, and I'm not, of course, not the only narrator who does that. There are plenty of them. But to me, I think when you're really giving them that full tilt characterization where it sounds like you've got different people in the booth, that's a different style. I don't know what you would call it, but that's why I threw voice actor in there. That, and I would love to do animation someday.
Oh, that's awesome. So I've got to know, with that many characters, how do you keep them straight? I mean, as you come back to record new segments and new parts, how do you not mix them up?
Usually it wasn't a problem. I think there was one character that showed up, like that first book, that showed up in chapter 4. And I didn't realize, even though I had read the book before, but I read very quickly. And I didn't realize that character was coming back about 12 chapters later. So I had to go back and listen to what I had done and get it back. But, most of them, you've got your main characters and they're showing up in every chapter. Like with the Starship Grifters books, you've got, my name is Sasha. I'm an android. She's a robot. It's easy. And then you've got Rex Nilo, wheeler dealer of the galaxy.
Yeah.
So, and I know them so well now, they're alternate personalities. But most of the characters, he delighted in giving me characters that only had one line and then you never saw them again.
Oh.
And I'm like, in some ways it's easy because I don't have to keep, but at the same time, I put a lot of pressure on myself to make them all sound different. It's like, Robert, you're killing me, man.
How do you work out how each one sounds? Like, after you read the book, how do you know, obviously a robot sounds like a robot, but I'm sure even a robot has its own special sound because it's a special robot. How do you figure that out?
If he gives me any clues, like there's one, and I in this one, it was really hard too, because I strained my voice doing it. captain of the Malarkian police, Hannes Vlack, Robert describes him shrieking, and he actually has a very high voice.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a particular challenge, but he gave me something to go on. Most of them, he doesn't really tell me anything. I mean, if they're a small character, we tend to associate higher pitched voices with smaller creatures
Mm-hmm.
and deeper voices. I had one character in that first book, Donnie. He's absolutely enormous, and he's very limited in his intelligence. So for that one, I basically went, do you remember the Abominable from the Bugs Bunny cartoons?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of like that. Rex is not a friend, but Sasha, you are my friend.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
I wish I almost need to do video because it's very physical. Like there's one character, Pepper. Hi, my name's Pepper Melange. And when I'm doing Pepper, I carry my body in a whole different way because Pepper is so much sexier than I am.
Are you holding a fake cigarette right now as you do Pepper?
No, but that would be a good idea. I think generally I'm probably thinking more like a brandy.
Okay.
Or maybe a martini. But yeah, because he describes her, and she actually has her own following.
Mm.
I'll see where some of his readers on Twitter, and they're like, "We need more Pepper." But
Well, readers fall in love with characters. They really do.
mm-hmm. And I would like to be Pepper because she's very smart and she's very sexy, and she's a con artist and a thief. She's got a very exciting life.
Oh, fancy.
So,
Yeah.
I have to get some spandex the next time.
She sounds like she should be holding a martini for sure. She sounds very James Bond, but not.
Yes. Exactly.
So, is she your favorite character of all time that you've narrated, or do you have another one?
Let me think about that. So far, she's definitely very high up there. I mean, I love Rex and Sasha, but also in the first book, and I think he's coming back in the next book. There's this little mutant robot that Donnie puts together out of about 6 arms and a couple of feet. He kind of scrabbles around on the floor.
Mm.
And so I modeled him because he's terrifying to look at. He's actually very sweet, but he's like a little robot mutant monster. And Sasha thinks he's an abomination at first. And I modeled him after Andy Serkis's Gollum. So, he's going, Daddy knows what it is.
Oh my gosh. That voice.
So I had a lot of...
That voice, it also reminds me of like the goblins in the labyrinth. I instantly thought of that. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny, that one I did that years ago because I've always done voices. My brother raised me on Monty Python, and he would, I had to get everything just so, or he would be on my case.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I read The Hobbit to my kids, and it was before the movies, I think, and I was doing, is it crunchy? Is it tasty?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm in Target with he was 2, my youngest at the time. He's in the cart saying that to himself very loudly. We got a lot of stares.
Oh, I'm sure he did, saying, is it crunchy? Is it tasty? Like, what?
Is it tasty? Can we eat it?
Oh, no. Do you then say to whoever is looking at your child a little oddly, hey, it's from a book. I don't know what's going on.
Well, generally, because that's a whole nother podcast because I have the 4 boys. 2 of them are autistic. They are a very interesting bunch. They're pretty friendly. And honestly, most of the time, if we get attention in public, I just like to smile sweetly and say, we're homeschoolers.
I guess that might just,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
They haven't been socialized. No.
Oh my gosh. You are so funny. I love it. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I'm having so much fun. Thank you.
Yay.
As you narrate tons of audiobooks, I would love to know, is there an author on your wish list that you really want to do a narration for them for their book?
Oh, I was pondering that when you said it. There is, it's funny because they're for different reasons. Like, I would love to do a book for Mark Halprin. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not. What does he write?
Okay. They made a movie of one of them, The Winter's Tale, but I didn't see the movie because the book is, probably about 800 pages long, and you can't turn an 800-page novel into a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he writes these incredibly lush, they're almost Homeric with these descriptive passages that are just pure poetry. And he's got fantastical elements. A few of them are set in like New York, maybe about 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's got one set in Brazil with this man who likes to beat up people who are drinking coffee. And you go through the whole book, and he's had all these adventures, and you finally find out at the end why he hates coffee so much, and you'll be crying.
Oh no, it's dreadful, huh? Oh
No, well, it's his books are just that beautiful, and they really are masterpieces. I think the only reason maybe he's not more well known is because they're so bloody long.
oh.
But just he's an exquisite writer, so it would be exhausting, but it would be just so satisfying
Mm-hmm.
to read something like that out loud.
Yeah.
But from another standpoint, I would love to do PG Woodhouse because he's so funny.
Mm-hmm. So
Now you're familiar with him.
Honestly, I don't read a lot of humor. So
Ooh.
yeah.
Well, if you ever need brain candy, PG, I'm sure you've heard of Hitchhiker's Guide, right?
I have, yes.
Okay. This author is Douglas Adams said P.G. Woodhouse was the finest comic author of the century.
Huh.
And so that's high praise. But he writes, well, you've heard of Jeeves, when people say, oh, once around the park, Jeeves,
Yeah.
and then back home for tea. Okay, that's where Jeeves came from. He's a P.G. Woodhouse creation of this butler who knows everything and keeps his protege out of trouble.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's so warped.
Hmm.
He wrote about 100 books, and they're all just insane.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I can't even imagine. There would be so many that I would love to do, but I think those were two that sprung to the top of my mind.
Oh, so when it comes to genres of narrating, is like humor where you gravitate toward most, or do you like that best?
I have right now. I'm not sure. I've done two of the humorous sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
for both in the Starship Grifters series by Robert Cruzy, and the sample that you're going to play is from the most recent one, Out of the Soylent Planet. Humor is fun, and I think because I am naturally zany, I want to say it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did City of Sand for him, which was completely different. It's much more it's a sci-fi mystery set in New Mexico. And so there's almost no humor whatsoever. There's a death, there's grieving, there's violence, there's a lot of profanity. Sorry, Mom. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge of it, but it was a lot more intense, and I'm still waiting to see how it's received. It's gotten a good review so far, but it just came out about a week ago. So
Okay.
I'm let's just say I'm not quite sure what my genre is yet because I need to do more.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that those type of audiobooks are more challenging just because of the seriousness of the subject, or what makes them more challenging?
I think I probably put more pressure on myself with the more serious ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about being playful, because it's a very playful household, and so I'm just used to that. Where I feel like without all the comical voices and the different, puns and all the stuff that's going on, because those books are hilarious. Robert has a real gift for that kind of warped humor.
Yeah.
With all of that taken away, it's much more like you're on a stage with no props.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's it's a great challenge, but it's just a little more naked feeling.
Yeah.
So, and the City of Sand was also the main character's a man. It's in third person though, so it was okay. If it were first person, obviously I couldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But to act what he's going through without making it female.
Okay.
Yeah. Because like when he's grieving, when he's angry, not to be stereotypical, but men have a different way.
Mm-hmm.
some of the time. I
Yeah.
don't want to get in any trouble here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, they express themselves differently than a woman does. So I had to make sure to really rope everything in.
Yeah.
And so it was cool. And I got to speak Spanish for that one. So
Ooh, fun. Do you already know
just a
Spanish,
little.
or did you kind of just try to sound Spanish while reading Spanish?
I know some Spanish. I took a few years in high school, and I have a good accent. And so she spoke Spanish, this one character. She did speak in Spanish some, and then the rest of the time I had to give her an accent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, but I lived in El Paso for 5 years, so I heard a lot
Yeah.
of that to go with. Now, the next book that I'm doing for him, The Dream of the Iron Dragon, that one is, I'm going to be doing a lot of Old Norse.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
which is very different
Yeah,
from Spanish. So
for sure.
luckily there are a lot of YouTube videos of a professor, Jackson Crawford is his name, and he does a lot of lessons in how to speak Old Norse. So,
Wow.
because I can't, I know that most people won't know what it should sound like, but Robert went to the trouble of researching it to write it properly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like it is absolutely incumbent upon me to speak it
Yeah,
properly,
for
or at
sure.
least to try.
Yeah. So how many hours do you think you might put into trying to sound Norse?
Oh dear. Um, I don't know. I hopefully not too many because, you want to have a certain amount of speed
Mm-hmm.
with the audiobook. But I think I would just have to, I'll try and keep track of it and maybe tell you later because
Yeah.
I don't
I'd
know.
love to know that. Like to actually learn how to sound a little bit different, that something that you haven't done before. That's got to be interesting.
hmm It is. Well, one thing I do know, I had read a book about creating languages. The guy who made, he wrote the language for Christopher Eccleston's character in Thor: The Dark World,
Mm-hmm.
and he's written the Dothraki language for Game of Thrones. And when I read that, and it was talking about how different cultures, like they'll put the accent on different syllables.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Norse, what I'm finding, if I'm remembering this correctly, where they tend to put the accents on the first syllable of the word.
Okay.
And we don't do that as often.
Right.
So it changes the rhythm. I think the biggest thing I'm noticing, because I'm also musical, and the rhythm of it is completely different from other languages or other accents that I've tried to imitate.
Yeah.
So I think just getting the music of it in my ears is going to really help.
Yeah. And it definitely is going to sound more harsh probably because of the accent on different parts of the word.
hmm It's
Interesting.
also fascinating, though.
Yeah, it is fascinating. It's like for me as an audiobook listener, I love to hear this stuff because I listen to so many audiobooks and the range of narrators is so broad. And it's like, wow. I mean, like one person can do one story and it sound this way and do another and sound completely different. And it's like, it's amazing to me. I think you guys are amazing for being able to stretch your voices in that way.
Thank you.
So as you prepared to, I guess, or you kind of delved into narration kind of by accident, but did you end up like listening to any audiobooks after or before you started being a narrator?
Well, it's funny. This is kind of fun. When I first got the job, I immediately got the audiobook that's the first one in the series. Because the Starship Grifters series, it starts with Starship Grifters,
Mm-hmm.
coincidentally, and it was published, and the publisher arranged, through Audible for one of the greats, Kate Rudd, to do the narration.
Mm-hmm.
And she was fabulous, and it's very highly. I mean, she's multi-award winner, and that was fabulous. But then Robert self-published the second book,
Mm-hmm.
and he could not afford Kate Rudd,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
which is how he ended up asking me. So I needed to listen to kind of get the flavor, but I didn't listen to the whole thing because I didn't want to try to copy her.
Yeah.
I wanted to give it a certain amount of consistency and yet without just trying to be her.
Right.
Because, we knew if it worked out, I was going to be doing the rest of the series. And I just, I needed to make it my own at the same time.
Yeah.
So I listened to some of that, and then I joined Audible because it's, the loyal thing to do. And so far, right now I'm listening to Walter Isaacson's biography of Leonardo da Vinci, and which there's some hystericals. I did not expect it to be so funny, but Da Vinci was a nut.
Yeah.
And see, then I got Fantastic Beasts for my kids. We've listened to that in the car.
Yeah.
And I could listen to Eddie Redmayne talk all day. So, and then Stephen Fry's Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm enjoying that one, but I don't get to listen a lot.
Okay.
Either we've got music going, or if I'm editing, I can't listen to anything.
Right.
So,
do you have a favorite narrator that, like, of the books that you have heard on audio, do you have one that kind of resonates with you that you like to listen to more? Like, whenever you see their name, okay, I'll take it.
Right now it would be Stephen Fry. I mean, who would not like listening to Stephen Fry? But are you familiar with? You're familiar with Stephen Fry, right?
Yes.
Yes, he's so marvelous. And that that was my maiden name, so I like to pretend that we're related.
Nice.
We're not, as far as I know. I am not actually making that claim.
6 degrees. 6 degrees. You never know.
There you go. Well, I'm supposed to be British, so. But I would like to listen to more Richard Armitage, just because his voice is so rich. But the only one I tried of him so far was a dramatic novel of Hamlet, and because I love Shakespeare, and I didn't like what the author had done with the story, so I couldn't finish.
Wow. Sometimes
I'm sorry, author person.
Sometimes it happens, I mean, to be honest, I have recommended like audiobooks to people sometimes when they have to get a book done for book club or something, and just reading it is painful. I'll say sometimes the audio will help because the narrator will add a little something to it that pulls you in a different way. So, but sometimes even an awesome narrator can't save it. That's just the truth. Let's keep it real. You know. Okay, well, let's listen to a little snippet of the title that you provided, which is Out of the Soylent Planet. And this is a prequel, right?
Yes.
But it's the second in the series, though.
Third. Starship Grifters was written first. Then iRobot, which was the first book that I did. And then Out of the Soylent Planet goes back and tells you how Rex and Sasha first came to be the dynamic duo that they are.
Okay, awesome. Let's take a listen.
Roared the Grabat. This translated roughly to, "Your flesh will slowly dissolve inside the stomach of my beloved razor-toothed churl, nihilo."
"Look, I know you're upset,"
said Rex,
"but I was going to pay you, Burgoon."
"Yagan goya solmbaga yanga slumugoya."
"And I was going to let you remain on the outside of the razor-toothed churl."
"I had a truckload of explosives I was going to pay you with, but there was a bit of an accident."
"Yanung samba yagunga gumagangun yama slumbugoya."
"You are about to have an accident in the belly of the razor-toothed churl." At this point, I remembered I was supposed to tell Rex if Burgoon said anything about the churl, but I suspected I had missed my window.
Okay, so we've heard the clip, and you've got to tell me a little bit about that language you were speaking. What is it?
Well, it's Burgoon the Grabat, and he is kind of a crime lord. Basically, one of the things that Robert does so beautifully is put a lot of pop culture references to classic sci-fi or, books that he's loved, films. There are nods to all sorts of things in his books. It's kind of like a little treasure hunt. And so what's happening there is basically a spoof of Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, when you've got C-3PO negotiating with Jabba the Hutt.
Okay.
And, Han Solo lost the shipment. So he just made up this, so I'm totally picturing myself as a big space slug while I'm doing it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see it. Now that you put
He
that reference on it, I can, yes, okay.
Yes, absolutely. And he put so many fun things in that book. We had become friends by the time he was writing it, and he knows I love Shakespeare. So there's a part in there where a lovesick robot gets to do an entire Shakespearean sonnet.
Wow.
My mistress eyes are nothing like the sun. And
Wow.
let's see, Sasha keeps fancying herself an actress and trying to do Streetcar Named Desire. But there's references to Dune. There's plenty of Star Wars. I can't even name them all.
Wow.
But you can count on Robert for that in this series. He's a very flexible writer. So like the book that I'm narrating for him now is just hardcore sci-fi. It's very serious and intense, and battles and explosions and swords and mayhem, but it's not silly at all.
Mm-hmm.
So he can really switch from genre to genre that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those Grifters books, there's a lot going. There's even there are plants in that book. There are plants that can talk, and they really, really, really like it when you pick their fruit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, moaning plants.
Oh,
Tune in here, folks.
no.
It's all there. Yeah.
Headphones only. Moaning plants. Okay.
I think it's still suitable for work, depending on where you work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not 50 Shades of Gray or 50 Shades of Green or something like that. I don't know.
Wow. Okay, so when you were saying the language that you were in this clip, did you have a lot of that, or just like this small segment? Did you have a lot of that language to speak?
Oh, well, it's just maybe like the last third of a chapter.
Okay.
So there's thank goodness there's just that one big conversation where Rex's fate is determined for that particular part of the book. So now that was the only foreign language in that book, other than the moaning plants.
Can't even.
But it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So did the writer come back and give you notes, or did he just think, you knocked it out the park first time? No notes on the language, or no notes on the moaning plants, etc.
No, he generally he's so busy. He churns out about 4 or 5 books a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's usually up to his neck in his next project. And sometimes I'll send him a little snippet just to make sure. But he's been really easy to work with. And trying to think, I think he dinged me once on one Spanish word because he's fluent.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one where I had gotten the accent wrong, and so we fixed that. But no, generally he just turns me loose.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's got to kind of be, I guess, the fun part of doing indie books is that you kind of have more freedom than you would, I guess, with maybe doing a big publisher, maybe.
Since I'm my own director and producer, then yeah, it's a lot of freedom. I think it's kind of it's a little bit scary because of course I want to please. And feedback is great because then if someone's listening to all of it and telling you yes okay, fix this, then there's that more security that you're getting what they want.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I think the first book I was an absolute basket case. I'll be honest with you because I'd never done it before. But now that we're kind of in a groove, and he trusts me to turn out something he's going to like. So I just know with the with City of Sand and then now The Dream of the Iron Dragon, we just talked about the fact that I'm trying to pull back the voices some and make it more of just a classic narration because I don't want to distract from the seriousness of the story. Yeah. So I'm aiming to make the men sound like men and the women sound like women, but I'm not stressing over making everyone sound, extremely distinct. Plus, I'm not giving anyone, other than speaking the Old Norse, I'm not giving anyone accents because it would just get too complicated. These books are, it's its whole, I don't quite know how to describe it. Just lost myself. But just to keep the focus on the action and not distract with my own dramatics.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing with this.
Okay. Well, kind of speaking to that, like, okay, obviously this series that we're talking about today has, a humor to it. So how did you keep yourself from like laughing or something while you're recording if you find something funny or ridiculous? Like, how do you keep yourself in the zone instead of like just like bursting out? And how you pull yourself back if that happens?
Well, I wish I had made a blooper reel. I told him we ought to start, like the next book, we ought to include a blooper reel as an extra chapter on the book, because I don't always, sometimes I just lose it. And especially, I'm more prone to laugh at my mistakes. When a word gets hung up, my language can get kind of colorful if I keep screwing something up. There are times I just would start making up dialogue. And, I just completely blew the word. I'm sorry. I've got to do something else now. And, but then I just, go back and edit it all out.
Yeah.
But I think mostly I'm trying to remember. I know there was one time where I got the giggles really badly. It might have been the moaning plants, and then you might just have to leave the booth and go get a glass of water and, come back. But it hasn't been too hard.
Oh, that's good. Because, just hearing the words moaning plants makes me laugh. I'm like,
I know.
I just can't. Oh, that is awesome. So, okay. So is there anything else you want to share with us about Out of the Soylent Planet?
I think I've hit. I don't want to give the plot away or anything else about it. If the moaning plants don't get you, and the robot in love, then what can I say?
I know, right?
It's got a little bit of everything. Oh well, it does have an unexpected dance party with the Bee Gees.
What? Is there actual music playing?
No. We figured that would be a copyright violation.
Yeah, it might be.
But a classic Bee Gees tune is referenced in this incredible work of science fiction artistry.
Wow.
So
awesome. So Bee Gees fans, you're in for a treat. Wonderful.
And Shakespeare. See, it covers everything.
Yeah.
It's culture. That's what it is. It's culture.
That's nice. I love it. It is culture. And I gotta say, this cover art is very interesting too. It's very different. So you definitely know you're gonna get like something funny out of this. So for sure.
Yes. And Robert did that himself.
Okay.
So he does his cover art. He's a talented person.
Wow. Well, he did that himself. That looks really good. Good job, Robert. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been a blast. I had a wonderful time chatting with you. Yay. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. So everyone, you will find links for Jennifer below in the show notes. You will find links for her audiobooks, and feel free to click on those and pick them up on Audible. And that's all for today. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.